around a change in mindset from like a victimhood mentality, for lack of a better
Mhm.
term, to
Right.
what are and an ownership from victim to ownership, I suppose, is probably the best way to explain it.
That's a really good point because I feel like again this is the stigma and maybe this is what the audience is needing to hear because I always believe when we're just connected and we're in flow, the conversation that happens is supposed to happen. So what you're talking about is the victim mentality coming out or the victim mindset. And a lot of times there's stigma when it comes to females playing victim.
Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast, stories of grit, growth, and success. On this show, we focus on the real stories behind the success, the struggles, the resilience, and the courage it took to keep moving forward even when times got tough. My goal is to provide you with stories of hope and transformation, showing that no matter the challenges, there is a way forward, and you can find it. This is Resilient Minds.
Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Campbell, and I'm here with Hadley Nightingale, and he is the CEO of New Zealand Property Buyers, and he's also a business coach. And I'm super excited to hear what he has to teach us today about his transformational story. But I'm also really biased because I'm super excited about the investment properties that are in New Zealand. So thank you so much, Hadley, for coming on this show.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me. Really looking forward to the conversation today.
Sure. So can you tell me how is the combination with, being the CEO of a property buying company as well as being a business coach? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I suppose it's just been a natural evolution to a degree with some of the stuff that we're doing, and then people asking about, hey, look, do you offer coaching? Can you help me out? I'm a bit stuck here. So that's just sort of been a natural evolution over time, and I think with the journey that I've been through and where we are now from where we started, there's probably a lot of gold for people that I think sometimes as uh, when you go through your own journey, you don't see the gold that you uncover along the way until you start talking to other people, and they're like, "Wow, that's amazing." You're like, "Oh, okay. I just thought it was my thing that I've overcome." So that's really
Yeah.
the biggest part of it.
Well, I think part of it too, especially if you're like helping people through a period of struggle, you've probably struggled with that too. So like if you're helping with them with something really, really big, it was probably not a pretty sight with the transformational journey.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And there's also the saying too that if you need to improve something yourself, then you're better off to teach it because you then hold yourself accountable to be able to get better at that
Right.
specific thing as well. So there's also that flip side to it too.
Right. I completely agree because I feel like, well, one, I was in the mental health field before I came into more speaking and training, but I mean, I've been humbled too by business, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I learn the best when I have one-on-one conversations because we both connect, we get in the flow, and everybody has their own insights, their own lessons, and then you both come to insights together that really
Yeah.
help both parties. And that's because we're connecting, and that's where the best ideas come from. So I also feel like no matter how many people you help, they're still helping you too by default.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. Everything's reciprocal, and I think you can learn something of everyone you meet. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a business thing, but just in every interaction, I think there's some degree of knowledge transfer. And it doesn't matter whether they're a 90-year-old person or a 4-year-old having a conversation with them. There's always something inquisitive that they've got to say or something that you can pick up.
I completely agree. What happened that it sounds like you had a maybe a fork in the road or something happened that created the transformational journey. Usually there's a starting point to it. What was
Yeah.
yours?
Which one? Which one?
Right?
So I mean, the first part of it was basically after I left school, I decided to buy some property. Made some really bad decisions with that, and then it was around 2006, 2007 with financial crisis and what have you. And then at the time, banks were just lending money to anyone and everyone, provided you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. And so bought a piece of property that was way too expensive, made some bad decisions with that, and then basically had to move to Australia to find a job that would then pay more than what I could earn in New Zealand. And then my psychology around that became if I can drive my truck day and night, and I can just live off 4 hours of sleep, that means that I get sort of 16 to 20 hours of work in a day.
Mhm.
Therefore, I can make some more money. Therefore, I can make my repayments. And if I just work harder, then I can get to where I want to be
So did it work?
for a short period of time.
Right.
And
Before the human themselves shuts down, right?
yeah. And until you realize that it's not great for your health, that when you're in isolation for that long, and we were driving like to the middle of nowhere where you'd be 3 or 4 k's away from the nearest town. And when things go wrong, it's up to you to try and fix them. But you also realize too that, or you don't realize it at the time, but it's once you come back out of that you basically have to learn how to communicate with people again. Because you've got no one to talk to, or the people that you do talk to that you see, your conversation solely sits around, hey, there's a flood over the road up there. Uh, everything's good. Yep, cool. See the person, gone again, and then you back and you sit with yourself for long periods of time. And then so when you go back to, we'll call it civilization, and people are saying, oh, this happened in the sport on the weekend, or this happened on the news, or this is going on, or
Mhm.
there's so and so's wedding next weekend. Do you want to come to that? And you're like, oh, I'm away. I'm away. I've got no idea what's happening with that because I haven't seen TV for weeks on end. So that's probably the challenge with it.
Right. What I know about people when they're sitting alone in silence, the brain starts talking, right? Like you're literally sitting alone with yourself. What was that like? What was the narrative? What did it sound like?
Um, I think for a long while there, it was really about the the issue was more so about the decisions that I made and me being in my 20s saying like, why me? You
Mm,
know, I'm just like I was a 19-year-old kid when I got into this, and then now I'm in my 20s, and this is between sort of 20 and 29. Um, why me? Why do I have to do this?
mm,
I should be out partying, doing stuff with my friends, or being having the ability to go off and do what I want to do. And the journey at the start was fun. Don't get me wrong. I was going to holiday new places I'd never been and seeing a whole lot of new stuff, and that was really cool. But I feel as though that the 20s were out the window and gone due
mm.
to a bad decision at 19. And that's really uh, the tricky bit with it when you are by yourself, and then you're going, well, you know, I've been to some places that no one, well, very few people will ever go, but it's still me out here by myself.
Right. What do you think the hardest thing that you've ever had to deal with or overcome was?
And to change topic slightly from that, probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do was when my daughter was 8 months old, myself and her mum went our separate ways.
Mm,
Now, that one, and in fact, I was talking to her about it last night. And that's probably been the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, and it's probably a bit of a continuation of what I was just mentioning before.
mm,
Is that like I don't think in life you set out to. Well, I mean, for me anyway, my ambition was never to, hey, have a kid, um, become a single parent, and then everything else that flowed on from that wasn't the plan. And so the pity party and the poor me kicked off again with that too.
right. And I feel like there's an added area that business coaches do need to be cognizant of when it comes to single parents, because it's on both sides now. There's so many single moms and single dads, and running
Yeah,
your own business. Yeah, it sounds great because you can work whenever you want, right? But
yeah,
that's not necessarily how it is. Like you work when you have to, but then
yeah,
what do you do with your kids? So we're
yeah,
consistently juggling that. And if business coaches don't understand how to assist a single parent, then they're really going to give bad advice.
yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? It's I suppose the like we do week on, week off. So To a degree, it allows me to go head down for that first week, and then when daughter's back with me,
Right.
then not so much. But the trick then being is that to try and switch in and switch out of that. But I've also got a 6 month old now as well, so it's also really strange to see your kid, and this is probably going to sound completely out the gate as well, but like having 8 years of seeing your child every second week, and you don't know what it's like
Mm.
to see them every day. You're like, does your kid get excited to see you every day when they see you? I Because I don't know. I She was like 8 months old, and then now we've got this little fella that he's 6 months old and growing like a mushroom, and it's
Mhm.
just it's now balancing that too. And like, okay, so we've got work, we've got daughter that comes every second week, and then how do we mold that into what we're doing as well?
That's a good point because parents who are full-time parents, they don't get a break.
No,
Like a lot of people, they feel bad for single parents because they're like, oh, poor you, that sucks, and it's got to be so hard. But that's one of the benefits too, is that sometimes if you're co-parenting, I mean,
yeah,
you can get some alone time for at least for rest and self-care or to hurry up and get some work done. But like,
yeah.
that's two sides of the same coin in terms of parenting and running your own business. Like, nobody really has it easy.
No, but I think and it was something that I was talking to her about last night as well, was like we get to choose in life
Mm.
how we assess things.
Yeah.
And we can either look at the like when this first happened, there was there's been litigation that's been going on around that for the last 7 years, and it really comes down to a thing of, it was poor me for the first 2 years, and then it really came down to a thing of like, right, we've got this. I can't change the trajectory of where the litigation side of things is going. That's going to be something that plays out, and it just is what it is. Um, the thing that I can control though is how we start to live our life. And that was a conversation that myself and my wife had at the time, was like, what are the controllable things that we can control? What's the stuff that we can't? And then that was really one of the biggest mindset shifts for us, was like,
Mhm.
we can't parent the other parent. We can't change anything in their house. All we can do is focus on us and where we want to go. And then what are the strategic things that we can do to make that happen? And I suppose with that too, it came about. Well, I suppose it brought us some freedom, to a degree, and the things that used to affect me don't affect me anymore. But that was where the growth started to go. Right, you've got whatever's happening over here that I can't do anything about, but I can do everything about what's happening over here. So this is the path that we need to go down, and this other stuff will chip away as we go.
Right. It gives you a chance of at least separating them to give you clarity.
Yeah,
But when it comes to, and this is just something me as a woman talking to a man who's been through these two things that to me they sound like the first one was the bad business decision, right? Or the bad
yeah,
property
yeah,
decision. And then the second one was a relationship. But it's
yeah,
the same theme that I've seen in men, which leads usually to a fear of failure. Is that
yeah.
how you experienced it, or was it more complex than that?
I don't think for me personally so much around a fear of failure, because I'm not worried to go and try new things.
Hmm.
I'm more about, right, cool, let's give this a go, and if it doesn't work, at least we've said we've given it a crack.
Right.
So it's more so I think around a change in mindset from like a victimhood mentality, for lack of a better
Mhm.
term, to
Right.
what are and an ownership, from victim to ownership, I suppose, is probably the best way to explain it.
That's a really good point because I feel like again this is the stigma and maybe this is what the audience is needing to hear because I always believe when we're just connected and we're in flow, the conversation that happens is supposed to happen. So what you're talking about is the victim mentality coming out or the victim mindset. And a lot of times there's stigma when it comes to females playing victim. And so whether
Yeah,
it's parents with your kids or parents without your kids, single moms, single dads, or the victim mentality, like both genders, they can do it. And I also recognize too, and this is, coming from my own lessons, right? In air quotes, but they're
Yeah.
failures, right? They're just reframed. But like I've had a lot of fear of failure too, even though I primarily see that with men.
Yeah. I mean, I think around um the victim side of things or that sort of mentality um is probably from my experience anyway, isn't as well displayed in guys as what it is in ladies. You ask a guy how he's doing and he's generally going to tell you he's fine. And
One
it's a
word.
little bit like a yeah, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. But even after all that stuff, yep, no, it's sweet. I'm just head down, working away. And
Yeah.
it's a bit like the duck, it's a bit like the duck sitting on the water where their feet are doing a million miles an hour, being their brain,
Yeah.
and everything on top looks fine, but you know deep down inside that's not quite the reality of things.
That's a good point too, because even when people are saying, and I'm sure you see this in your business clients, and I'd love to know what your experience with investment clients too, because money brings up all kinds of fear and
Yeah,
insecurities. But people who act like they either have it all together or they're fine regardless of what's going on, or people who are freaking out, right? Like
yeah,
neither one of them have full clarity. It's usually the
yeah,
person who's grounded, aware, authentic, they can feel their emotions. But how do you deal with that when you're either business, like when you're coaching them, or whether
yeah.
you're helping them with their investment property if
Yeah,
they're
I mean
not
that conversation.
balancing?
Yeah, I mean that conversation normally happens sort of at the start with people where they're like, "Hey, look, um, that they're generally the people to ask you about what's the guarantee, or like, do you have a guarantee on what you do?" And for us, the answer to overcome that is really, look, I can guarantee that I'm going to do what we've discussed because we wouldn't have been in business as long as what we have. The part that I can't guarantee though is how you're going to react when it comes time to do something.
Hmm.
So everyone's good until they have to sign the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Everyone's good until they have to make the decision. And then it's a case of how are you going to manage your own fear to get you from here to across the line. And that's the bit that I'm not a psychologist. I haven't got the skills to work through that with people, but it more so comes down for me to make them aware that everything's good now because it's easy. There's no stress, there's no pressure. You don't need to make any decisions other than are you going to work with us, yes or no? But there will come a point where it's like we've found you what you want. You've got stuck in position X and you need to do Y. And can you pull the trigger and actually look after you, get your emotions in check and
Hmm.
actually go out and do the thing that you need to do or make the decision that you need to make. And that's probably the biggest part where it shows up for us.
So it's making the decision at the beginning. You still see fear come up. It's not just when they already own the property, if things, something happens with the market or, because
Oh,
I
well, one,
never invested in property, so I don't know what like a
yeah,
bad decision looks like and how it would
yeah.
cause problems.
I mean, once they've bought it, they've already made the biggest decision is committing to something. And I
Mm,
think that's commitment's really the biggest thing I think for a number of people was like the idea sounds good. Everyone likes the idea. And especially in New Zealand, everyone loves property. It's just like it's a cultural thing. Um, but the thing with it is like the idea sounds great. It's like skydiving. Yep, cool. I didn't, but I'll be the first to admit I've got no intention of jumping out of a perfectly good plane. Um, but the thing is like it sounds like a good idea until you get up there. Yeah,
hmm
you're on board, and then the door opens, and then you've actually got to jump out of the plane. And the
hmm
buying the property is the same thing. Like, let's go and do it, but then we've got to go and jump out of the plane. You go, no, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And you're
hmm
like, well, hang on, this is what you wanted, and we've got you to here.
Yeah.
Now you need to work through whatever you've got to work through to yeah to get past that point.
Yeah. So you just made me think. I went skydiving several years ago and I was doing it tandem, right? So the guy had me
Yeah.
strapped to him. He opened the door and he looked out and he goes, "Are you ready?" And my whole body went cold and the butterflies came. And he's like, "Well, wait a second. Are you ready now?" And then he did it like 3 or 4 times, just checking if I'm ready. And I couldn't speak. I don't know if he
Yeah.
was trying to wait for me to say yes, but like I could tell it was very, very obvious what my body was going through. And then, of course, when we jumped, it was the most, if anybody has ever considered going skydiving, you should absolutely do it, was the most
Yeah.
freeing thing. But I felt like it was that letting go of control right before you made that decision because your body's response, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that because I'm like, oh my God, it was the worst feeling. Then it came to be the very freeing feeling. Do you ever feel like people impulsively jump into stuff like that when it comes to investment properties?
Yeah, so like you said before, there's the two people you've got to watch. There's the people that are fanatically into this and they'll just say yes to whatever. And you've got to sort of just get them back to the center to be like, hey, look, you I get that you want to get somewhere, but the way that you're going is you're going to get yourself into trouble. But then there's also the people that are too scared to make a decision at all.
Hmm.
And they don't quite realize that they're still making a decision by not making a decision. And then knocking them back, getting them up to the middle to go, right, we're going to make we are going to make a decision here, whether it's yes or no. But we're going to do it with all the information that we possibly can, and we're going to do it in a reasonable time frame, not erratically and not over 3 months. So it's about sort of bringing those two personalities back to the middle
Right.
to sort of make a informed decision. Is what I was thinking of.
You said that you're not a psychologist or you don't have that training, but to me, it sounds like you manage people's emotions every day. You got
Yeah,
impulsive people who are not aware, and then you have very fearful people who have a lot of avoidance, right? You're always just trying to bring them to center and balanced so they have clarity, so that I'm sure there's so many things that can go wrong in the deal or they can kind of mess it up in some way. But at the end of the day, if they, let's say they can't manage their emotions, it comes back to the person who worked with them to get them signed on, right? Because they're trying to project the
yeah,
blame.
yeah. I think the the game that we're in, or the industry that we're in, is very much one of dealing with emotions.
Yeah.
And just to sort of tie back to what we were saying earlier, like if you'd met me in my early 30s, was like emotion wasn't a thing
Hmm.
because we'd sort of just grown up with, you don't cry, you just get on with it. You don't, feeling down, why would you do that? The sun's shining today. And so, and then I've gone from like that extreme of just being able to bottle everything up to this of like, and I say this to my wife all the time, it's like I've back juggling people's emotions all day because you get yourself to a point where like you've had a property, it's about to be sold, and then they turn around at the 11th hour and go, "Oh, I've just rung my lawyer and said that we're going to cancel the contract because I just haven't got a good feeling about this." And
Mm.
you're like, well, we've just worked for the last the last month to try and get you to where we are now, and then you don't like the look of something or the feel of something, so we're going back to square one again, as opposed to logically looking at things.
Yeah.
So yeah, juggling emotion is probably the daily thing for us to do that. But yeah, it's a skill base.
Absolutely. And I'm sure your transformational journey and looking within helps you, whether you're helping with people properties or with business coaching, it helps you help them throughout the process, even when those emotions come up. Really quick, before we end, though, I have a couple of questions for you. The first one, though,
Yeah.
is what is like a lifeline or a coping skill, a resource or a habit, hobby, anything that really helped you with your transformational journey when things were the hardest?
Probably one of the biggest things I did was is that I go and see like an energy healer every it used to be like weekly, now it's monthly. But just to have someone external to check in that's neutral, that and I think too, like for me anyway, with finding someone like that is to find someone that's not going to just validate everything you say, and that it's someone that's got just like a neutral tone across, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, to sort of like we were saying before, bring you back to the center as opposed to validate everything that you say because it comes out of your mouth. So that was probably a big part of that, and then also too just getting back out in the fitness side of things, back running, back to the gym, just something where running's running's a little bit different, but if you can pick up a skill, like I've gone back to playing golf as well. So it's like golf, you can't think about your problems while you're doing something. So if you can go and play golf for a couple of hours, or you can go and practice golf for half an hour, you're thinking about your swing, you're thinking about what's going on, and you can't think, oh, this happened or that happened or why is this happening? It's you've
Right.
just got to focus on where you are. I think animals do that as well. If you got a dog, or more so a dog than anything else. But that's also something that we've done as well.
What's wrong with cats?
Oh, cats! Don't get me started on cats. Cats,
I love
cats only
animals,
care
but
about themselves.
I got my cats. I got two cats. So I asked you for one, but you gave us like four. So we have energy healing, physical fitness, dogs, not cats, and then goal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose it all fits into the self-care bucket.
Absolutely. My other question is for any business owners out there that they are at a comfortable place, they weren't sure if they should, invest in some property.
Yeah.
I personally am very interested in New Zealand because it's absolutely beautiful and I love the accent. But what should they know right now about the market?
I think every market's different, and there's not just one market is the thing. And if you are going to go and buy, it's more so a case of looking at, do the numbers work for me today? Because we can always find an excuse as to why we're not going to buy something. Interest rates are up. There's no confidence in the market at the moment. So it's just about assessing a deal on what we know today, and then what happens in the future, let's mitigate that down the path as we go. But if we can make a decision on today's rates, stress test them slightly higher, and then just commit and make a decision, and especially for your first one, do it, buy something that's boring, that's just like a standalone house or a duplex. You don't want to go out and buy something that's a 9 block apartment, a block of 9 units, and go for the biggest thing you possibly can,
Yeah.
because you just get yourself in trouble because you haven't got the experience.
That is a lot of wisdom right there. So I really appreciate you. Start small, guys. Start small.
Yeah.
All right. So your links will be in the description below so people can go ahead and contact you. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. Thanks, Dr. Campbell. Appreciate it.
Thank you.